deficiency. But in light of the Big Four agenda, because it seems also that, according to a recent report from the East Africa, that only 1% of Kenya's Big Four agenda targets have been met so far. And it goes on to say that Kenya's goal for maintaining an upward growth of its economy through the ambitious Big Four agenda seems elusive, as only less than 1% of set targets have been met. At the beginning of his second term in office, President Uhuru Kenyatta outlined 4 pillars of development that will form the basis of his legacy: food insecurity, affordable housing, universal healthcare and manufacturing. But less than 2.5 years left of his tenure, the Big Four agenda projects are struggling to take shape. Last week, the government received, that is the first 228 complete housing units out of the 1,370 under construction at the Park Road project, and it goes on and on. But in light of this, we still seem to be lagging behind. And I think you said health also seems to be struggling as it is, according to your own assessment. And we've seen there was a pilot project of a universal healthcare that was carried out, in different countries by the CS, the outgoing CS, Cecil Karaoke. And now we have, the whole universal healthcare outlay being rolled out, in the country as it is right now. But in comparison to what we're talking about, the cost of labor, and this is a slice of what, the ambitious Big Four agenda has so far, met. Where are we headed, broadly speaking?
I think it's Kiprono who said we very often our analysis is a complaint. You see,
in fact, I was just remembering, maybe Kenyans can make, a good cover model for the Book of Lamentations.
Absolutely. So if you take cancer, and yes, is it an issue? It's an issue. But you have to try and figure out, what is it about the issue? Look, very prominent personalities have died from cancer. Is it because they lacked access to medicines or access to oncologists, for example? I think not. Those prominent Kenyans who have fallen to cancer had access to oncologists across the world. So the thing about cancer is that many cancers can actually be treated provided they are detected early enough. So the big issue for cancer is actually early assessment, is detection, is testing early enough. So the major policy drive, in my view, it should not be just about, do we have oncology centers and do we have oncologists? It has to be, how do we encourage the population to get tested, for example, to go for annual medical and things like this, that can help in detecting cancers early enough. So UHC, some people want to assume it is about specialist doctors and the top end at Kenyatta National Hospital or Nairobi or whatever, and it isn't. UHC is about prevention, yes, and promotion. So first of all, we want you not to get sick, for which we have to persuade you to a certain lifestyle so that you reduce lifestyle diseases, for which we have to do public health in order to prevent. For instance, just things like food hygiene and things like this. So a very big part of UHC is prevention and promotion. Then the second step is primary health, meaning dispensaries and health centers. Now, so the big, again, push is about what capability of diagnostics is available at the dispensary level. So if you go to your neighborhood dispensary and we are trying to see from your blood what it is that is giving you fever, yes, do we have to send that sample to a level 5 hospital, or can we do it there? And the push is for us to do it there, meaning providing certain diagnostic capability so that the nurse or the clinical officer at a dispensary or health center is able to do those things. So where are we? I personally think, we are at 60, nearly 70% of the direction we want to be in to achieve UHC. But in that sector, the focus on the very top end, meaning specialist doctors, yes, confuses the issue, and it makes it seem as though we may not achieve healthcare, universal healthcare. Finally, it's also about financing, or the financial burden to the household, yes, when they do get sick. And in there, we do have to keep deepening the conversation, because social insurance, we had hoped would be based on NHIF. NHIF has struggled. There's been some effort to reform it, but I think those reform efforts need to deepen so that again, and you just saw 2 weeks ago a bit of a knee-jerk reaction from them in terms of the relationship with the informal segment of their portfolio, suggesting that the analysis needs also to be deeper.
Thank you.
Yeah.
All right, thank you. Let's hear from Kiprono Kitoni.
I would like to say, let me quote Charles Dickens. Charles Dickens said that, these are the best of times, these are the worst of times. It is a time of foolishness, it is a time of wisdom. It is a time of light, and it is a time of darkness. I mean, I think that almost summarizes, because Kenya seems to have all 4 seasons of every situation. And with specific regard to the Big Four, I think first of all, it's a good thing that the government does have a plan, that the government does have an objective of the things that they intend to realize within a given period of time. I think that it's quite advanced right now into the season, into the second term of President Kenyatta, and it's actually a good time for him to take stock on the Big Four agenda. And I've always said, and I repeat again today, that in my own opinion, the low-hanging fruits are food security and healthcare. I think those two are actually quite achievable. Regarding affordable housing, well, we're making some good steps forward, and last week you saw the ACON cross-listing in the NSC and in the London Stock Exchange.
Yes.
ACON alone is going to be delivering 50,000 units of hostelry. And that already is 10% of what the affordable housing pillar intends to produce. Whether they will achieve 150 or 200,000, it is still a step. I've always argued that the affordable housing agenda could even be bundled into Vision 2030. It could be an objective that we have to achieve between now and 2030. I mean, what's the urgency of doing it between now and 2022? On manufacturing, I think, like Governor Muredi said earlier on, power is a big hindrance. I mean, the cost of power has been a very major challenge in this country. And even where it is available, evacuation has been a challenge. So in my opinion, and again I reiterate, food security and healthcare are quite achievable. I mean, if you look at, for example, in food security, do we have enough intervention of scientific research in our agricultural sector today? In Trans Nzoia, where I come from, that's the breadbasket district, we are doing the same things that the colonial farmers were doing in 1950. We're planting our maize with 2 bags of DAP and 1.5 bags of CAN. Why do we expect to have a different outcome of 60 years of exhausted soils? We need to collapse agriculture with water in order to ensure that water, which is a significant enabler of agriculture, is put into play. We need to look at the actual productivity per acre of every single commodity. We need to look at how we can do value addition of our agriculture, and I think we can actually achieve food security quite easily. Healthcare, like the governor has said, I mean, it is possible, it is achievable. It is just that we need to have a far more robust implementation plan. But I do think that it is time actually that we take stock of the Big Four agenda. All
right. Let's hear from Governor Otichilo.
Thank you. First, I want to say that the 4 big agenda are well-intentioned, and if fully implemented, will have a major impact to the lifestyles and the economy of this country. However, I want to note that for the last almost 2 years, we have been talking about this the Big Four agenda. We have tended to do more of the talking than the practical. And when you look at this, the 4 big agenda, you see that most of these functions are devolved.
Yes.
Food security is devolved. Universal health care coverage is devolved. Even manufacturing, most of it will be based on agriculture.
Yes.
And so therefore, if you boost food production, then manufacturing will be covered. Equally, even housing. With devolution, you find that most of the workers now are within the counties. So even housing becomes a devolved function. But the biggest problem has been that under food security, as a devolved function, we in the counties who are supposed to be mainstreaming this pillar, the resources are not devolved with the function. Most of the resources on food, on food production, are still held at the headquarters, at the Ministry of Agriculture. So you find that we can hardly come up with the innovative agricultural practices that will improve food production. So without devolving the resources to the grassroots level or to the counties, it's very unlikely. And also at the county level, we need to look at the human resource in the agricultural sector, because right now the agriculture has changed, and with the climate change, yes, we have completely changed how we practice and how we undertake our agriculture, because rainfall is no longer a well guaranteed thing that it will occur at a particular season. Yes. So we must change, get into conservation agriculture, get into irrigation agriculture. We had big programs on irrigation, but I think it's fizzled out now. Nobody's talking about those. And that is the way to go to be able to mitigate on climate change. On universal health care coverage, I want to agree with my colleague, yes, Mredhi. You know, if we focus more on primary health and protection, I think more than 60% of this problem will be solved. But currently now, as he has clearly indicated, we are focusing on high-end, on high-end medical facilities, yes, and expertise. And this is very costly. So what we need to do is to get to the grassroots, like at the grassroots level, we have what we call community health workers, yes, or volunteers. If you train those women and men to teach our people at the grassroots how to live a balanced health life, we will have a major change. If we supplied just water alone, if we had clean, potable water, we would change. This pillar would take care of almost 20 to 30%. So we are still a long way to go.
Right. But the biggest question is, before I ask that question, let's hear from Habilolaka on the Big Four agenda.
Yeah, I was just going to add on to that. You know, we have talked about Kenyans being good at lamentations, and I remember during the 2019-2020 budget reading, one of the things that came out of the fact that there wasn't enough allocation of resources to the Big Four agenda, despite the fact that it was a very ambitious target by the government. And I think we should rather look at it in terms of the government providing incentives for the private sector to come in and support its agenda in terms of driving the Big Four agenda. And if I look at, for example, we talked about affordable housing program, where we're talking about the requirement is almost to 50,000 units a year.
Yes.
Currently, we are just about 50,000 coming out, and therefore the deficit is almost 200,000 cumulative over the period. And so we can see how far we are from achieving the target. And I think by the government focusing on providing an enabling environment and providing incentives to the market to facilitate the private sector to come in and play their due role, I think we might be going somewhere. And Kiprono mentioned about Econ Holdings green bond issue.
Yes.
You know, one of the things that the government did in the budget was to provide some incentives to investors coming into the green bond market. And that's a way of developing the market. And you can see already the fruits of that kind of an initiative. So I think my approach would be that the government should more or less look at it from the point of view of trying to provide incentives and enabling environment to facilitate the private sector to come in and play their due role in terms of supporting it to achieve the Big Four agenda.